My name's Serge Kassardjlan. I lead our media apps for Google Play. So anything that's happening on Android and Google Play around the media industry, I have a team that leads all the partnerships around that. And this team has evolved tremendously over the 7 years I've been at Google. We started off as Android Marketplace, and Android Marketplace started off on the initial Android phones and moved out into Google Play, at which point I joined the team. And Google Play moved on to tablets, moved on to watches, moved on to cars, moved on to connected TVs, and where the Android OS was moving on to. And then over the last couple of years, we've seen an evolution into virtual reality, augmented reality, and a number of the different initiatives around virtual reality and augmented reality where Google Play has gone. So as part of my talk, I'm going to go through all the things that we're doing at Google around apps and all the different surfaces that Google Play Apps is moving on to around the virtual reality and augmented reality space. So quickly, everyone thinks about VR as going into new experiences, going into new places that you've never been, storytelling. Everyone's starting to think about AR, of how do we use our devices, whether we're wearing them, whether we're looking through them, to augment that world. And what I'll be doing today is looking at our platforms that enable these types of experiences globally and through our footprint of Android. So Google's has one main goal. We want to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So if you look at these important words, there's two things that I want to pull out of here. Looking how we can make things accessible. So our team has worked across our ecosystem of partners and apps across sports leagues and media content providers, from everyone from the NBA to the NFL to Major League Baseball to Netflix and Hulu and HBO. And one of the things that we constantly are hearing these partners tell us is we want everyone across the world to be able to access their content. And whether this is a direct-to-consumer subscription business or whether this is a virtual reality experience, whether it's taking someone who's a massive, massive sports fan who can never, ever go and sit and experience that game and putting them in that front row seat, whether they're sitting in the far corners of India or they're sitting at their home in New York City, we want to make content accessible for everyone in the world. And VR and AR is very, very important for that. We also want to make it useful, right? We see so many VR experiences which may be better in 2 dimensions, right? Everyone's so quick to jump people into a 360 immersive storytelling environment, but sometimes what is already being done works. So figuring out exactly what that point is where the usefulness actually matters of that VR headset, right? Asking someone to take a headset and put it on their head for 10, 20, 30 minutes at a time, that's actually a big investment in time with all the different things that we have going on around that world. So we are constantly thinking from a Daydream and a Tango perspective, how do we make content accessible? How do we make content useful? And if you look at the early days of mobile and what we did with Android, we were thinking about it the exact same way, right? App stores were fundamentally built on how do we make things accessible to everyone in the world, and how do we make it more useful using the APIs of a phone that is more useful than something that you would from a mobile web browser or even from a home PC. So one thing that cannot be argued is there are 300 billion phones in the world, or smartphones in the world, which is a much, much bigger number than the 1.5 billion PCs in the world. So from that, there is a tremendous amount of opportunity to use this phone as a computing platform. And from that, there's a tremendous opportunity to use this as a computing platform for virtual reality as Google has been a leader in. So a few years back, we had an engineer at Google who decided to take on a project to create cardboard. And cardboard was really looking at what is the lightest weight, easiest way to create a virtual reality experience that would be really, really, really cheap, really, really easy to recreate, and really fun to use to get people to experiment with VR and try VR for the first time. And with that came the first generation of cardboard, which was something that was unexpectedly a huge, huge success for both developers in our ecosystem, OEMs who were recreating cardboard for trade shows, marketing purposes, and just getting people to step into new types of experiences, and consumers. You know, at my family holiday party, right after we had cardboard come out, I took this cardboard piece and I passed it around to everyone in our family. People who still had feature phones, people who had never even really experienced 3D movies, much less virtual reality experiences. And they were blown away. There was this great clip of touring the White House, an Obama White House, in virtual reality and seeing it in a 360 video that was on YouTube. And I remember passing it around in my family, and it was like, whoa. And it was all done through cardboard. And it was kind of the gateway that really engaged people for the first time. Now, Cardboard was announced at Google I/O, which is our big developer conference that we do every single year where we've announced our other virtual reality products. Last Google I/O, we announced that there's 5 million plus Google Cardboard viewers shipped. I believe this number is probably a lot bigger at this point, just because there's a lot of other cardboard devices that are all over the world, which we actually have no way of tracking because they may not be necessarily certified. But the point being is, lots of people are actually trying out virtual reality without us even knowing it, and it's being experienced in so many different contexts, and cardboard was what initially enabled this. One of the things that came out of cardboard is a lot of brands started jumping all over cardboard to experiment and get their consumers using cardboard for the first time. Volvo did a driving experience. One of the things that our team worked on, we worked very closely with the New York Times to create this opportunity to grab cardboards, ship them with newspapers, and have the New York Times VR app downloaded by consumers, so that on the Sunday paper, they would grab the piece of cardboard, download the app, and start seeing immersive storytelling content like no one had ever done before. We ran a big promotion with Star Wars around Episode 7, and doing some incredible VR experiences with Disney and Star Wars, again, through some promotional experiences that we were doing with cardboard. And all of this led to last May when we announced Daydream. So Daydream is basically an epitome of what we do with Android and Google. We find great smartphones, we find great hardware, and then we find an app ecosystem that we put across it. What we're ultimately going to try to do with Daydream, and we are doing, is we have a smartphone OEM that can be recreated over and over and over again against a whole different number of handsets. We have a reference design for a headset, which is the Daydream View, which will be recreated over and over and over and over again. And then we have an app ecosystem, which is driven by Google Play. And I'll jump into each of these three components of our ecosystem, but it replicates exactly what we've done across Android and across all the different form factors I mentioned for Android, whether it's phone, tablet, watch, car, TV. We create a reference, our OEMs recreate it, and then we take an app ecosystem and we plug it on top of it. So we recently, back in November, announced our first Daydream-enabled device, which is the Pixel. Since then, there have been a number of other devices that have been announced. We look at Android as a phone that is certified with certain capabilities. In order for something to be a VR-ready Android phone, there needs to be a number of certification requirements built on top of that. for something to be Daydream ready, it needs to have a number of factors such as low persistence displays, high performance system on chip, low latency, the appropriate sensors. We want sustained performance so the battery can last what we're asking for on VR. We want to be able to enable head tracking and a system level UI that basically recognizes what's going on for VR capabilities and VR apps. And all this gets baked in to become a Daydream certified device. On top of that, we announced what we're calling the Daydream View, which is the first reference Daydream headset, which we hope that our partners will recreate in various types of ways. So Daydream View is basically a smartphone VR headset, which includes a controller. And it was the first headset that actually includes an independent controller that allows you to do very, very deep interactive experiences that other headsets, whether it's cardboard or any of the other platforms, wouldn't enable you to do, which you would typically see from a tethered device. The things that we kind of anchored Daydream View on is we make sure that it's comfortable, it's easy to use, and it's very personalized based on how you want it. So a lot of the other headsets in market, they look like something from a sci-fi film. If you look at what we've done with Daydream View, it's very fashion forward. It's something that you could see people wear and feel comfortable in and look very, very cool, unlike a typical headset would look like. And a lot of this inspiration comes from cardboard, right? We looked at cardboard, and cardboard had all these incredible partners who were creating these creative versions of cardboard, plastic, cloth, small pieces of paper, but they were all really, really creative and didn't necessarily look like VR headsets as people would imagine them. And that was part of the inspiration of what we did with Daydream. One thing that Google is constantly striving for with this product is making sure things are very, very easy to use. The Daydream Controller fits very, very easily into the headset as well as the phone. So we'll show you here. It's super, super comfortable. The controller is very, very easy to use. We make sure that we have the appropriate 3D motion sensing. A wireless Bluetooth connects the controller to the headset. An NFC chip recognizes the headset to the actual phone. So the user, all they need to do is pop it into the phone. And we'll continue to reinforce this message. Everyone should be able to use it. When you take this to your cocktail party, or if the first time VR user is using it like they are with cardboard, it needs to be really, really simple and intuitive to use. And you'll start seeing customization, right? We announced 3 different colors, but you can imagine everyone from high-end luxury brands to other brands that may come out will be created in this ecosystem. So people are constantly asking us, so what's the difference between Daydream and cardboard, and what are the key differentiating factors? So when we think about cardboard, we think about introductory mobile VR, any smartphone. It works across iOS and Android. Typically, the content's going to be much more short form content because you hold it up without a headset, without a head strap. And the hardware viewers will be much lower cost. We think of Daydream as a premium VR platform, much higher smartphone performance. So not every smartphone will work on it, only the ones that have the capabilities to be Daydream enabled. We want people to use the headsets for a longer period of time. We target 10, 15, 20-minute experiences rather than short-form 2 or 3-minute experiences that you typically see with cardboard. And we have high-end consumer-grade hardware that we expect to happen both on the smartphone side and on the headset side. So as we jump into what the content experiences look like, we want to make sure that the really, really familiar Android users understand how to use it. You've got a clickable touchpad, you've got a home button like you have on Android, and you have an app button that allows developers to experiment with how they want to control the content experiences. You have 3D movements that are enabled with the controller. Again, things that other smartphone VR headsets aren't able to do and you typically expect with tethered headsets. So jumping in really quickly of what the experience looks like. So as you throw on the VR headset, you'll immediately notice a UX and a launcher that is very specific to Daydream. You see below, you'll notice the familiar Android features. The Play Store is prominently placed to be the store that distributes the content. You can download the apps on your phone and put the headset on, or you can go in the VR experience and download the apps. You'll notice that it's content first. Specific content experiences are featured up front, as well as familiar apps on the bottom. And here are some of the apps that we've announced. Most of the major media companies have announced apps with us, sports leagues as well, all the main newspapers. So if you think about the catalog of content that has developed on Daydream, we have everything across all the catalog, as well as a bunch of games that are familiar to many of our users. So the other side of this is Tango and our augmented reality experiences. So for those who aren't familiar with Tango, it's basically taking the phone and creating an experience in your real life environment and augmenting it with what our app developers think would be best to create a much more immersive experience. So a simple use case is, let's look at a table. If I take my phone, I should be able to recognize all the dimensions of that table and be able to augment it with various things that the application can provide on it. So for example, I want to measure what the table would look like, what I want to add to that table, how it would fit in my room, how I could export it to think about things I can put on top of it. All of this should be sensed through a volumetric capture capability of the phone. We can take a step back and look at the entire room through the phone lens as well and see all the different aspects within the room that we could potentially add. How would the room look? What would fit in the room? What could I shop for in the room based on everything that I'm seeing from that lens? So the things that the Tango phones enable, they enable motion tracking, so you know what's moving and how to interact with your environment. They enable depth perception. So if you look at all other smartphones that aren't Tango enabled, they have no idea what a 3D interface looks like and how you can interact with that 3D interface. So the Pokemon Go example, right now Pokemon Go is just placed like a sticker and use the various GPS coordinates. But imagine a world where you can actually go into the volume and touch everything in the volume and have that depth perception and know exactly where everything is and interact with that in an augmented way. So some of the use cases we've discussed over and over again: measure with your phone, see what's happening, visualize what you're buying. Obviously, from an e-commerce perspective, this has a lot of different capabilities, whether it's I want to see what shoes potentially look like on my feet, or furniture in my room, or potentially thinking about reimagining how the architecture within my room would be. Everything can happen from a phone interface. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions right now with augmented reality is, for augmented reality, everyone thinks, well, I need to put on goggles, or I need to put on glasses, or I need to put on a headset. Well, in reality, with Tango, you can actually create this augmented reality interface using just your simple phone and just looking through the lens of a phone. Again, from gaming example, there's a huge opportunity to bring characters into the world and interact with the environment from a brand perspective. Right? You can literally use that phone lens to put anything and anyone into that environment and have a creature crawl around on these chairs by recognizing these chairs, or have someone hang from the light here and interact with the environment from the phone. So this 3D volumetric opportunity completely changes the way that we interact with the world around us and changes the way that content can be put into a space, from gaming environment, from a media environment, from a commerce environment, and a number of different use cases stemming from that. Mapping, navigation, travel. You can imagine everywhere that you go suddenly becomes more interesting because of the environment that you can track as you're moving through it. and everything through that lens of the phone and comparing it to the contrast of what's happening in the real world. So these are our two platforms, Daydream, Tango. We have more and more phones coming into the market. Google's investing very, very heavily in both of these spaces, and a lot of exciting developer opportunities enabled by Google Play for it. And so here are all the different partners and the constituents within Google and externally who are working on it, and that's Daydream and Tango.